Welcome to the Dropping Gems con Muchos Colores podcast. I am your host, Arely Lagunas. This is an audio community where we own and share our stories as trailblazer moms, crafting a unique and meaningful work lifestyle, leading with passion, breaking barriers, and chasing bold dreams on our own terms. Celebrating our Latina motherhood voices to bring you genuine insights to the highs, the lows, and in-betweens of working moms from a first-gen Latina lens. We don't have to travel this journey alone. Let's get started. In today's episode, joining us to discuss financial wellness is Rita Soledad Fernandez Paulino. Rita Soledad Fernandez Paulino is a former math teacher turned personal finance educator. While sick on medical leave in March of 2019, she started to develop her financial literacy by reading books, listening to podcasts, and watching YouTube videos. By May of 2019, she became the chief financial officer for a small startup called the Puro Party Paulinos, also known as her family of four. Within 19 months in her new role, Soledad used zero-based budgeting to pay off about $23,000 in student loan debt, saved a 6-month emergency fund, maxed out IRAs for her husband and herself, maxed out her husband's 401k account, and created an early retirement plan. She has since started studying to become a certified financial planner to ensure more BIPOC and LGBTQ gente can receive financial planning from someone who understands their challenges and dreams. Soledad is committed to talking dinero with anyone willing to listen so that we can all build wealth juntos. And with that in mind, I want to welcome Soledad to our podcast. Welcome, Soledad.
Thank you, Arely, for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I want to start off by saying that I love your sentiments on financial literacy because we all know that personal finance is personal. And just like you say, at the end of the day, only we know what's best for our own situations based on our available options and circumstances. And the more that we are committed to learning about how to live below our means, cash flowing expenses, and investing to build wealth, the more financially secure we all can become. So talk to us a little bit more about your financial journey and how financial literacy has impacted your own journey.
So as you mentioned in the bio, I started my financial journey when I was sick. I was sick on medical leave. I was a former math teacher, and I got so sick I was unable to walk to the bathroom because I had inflammation in my lungs. During that time, I would just lay in bed and read a lot of books, and I started reading personal finance books. And for the first time in my life, I started to feel like I had the information on how to build wealth. Growing up, I did not feel like building wealth was something that was accessible for me. I saw my mom live, paycheck to paycheck. She accumulated a lot of debt. She was a single mom. In my neighborhood, there was a lot of poverty. So wealth wasn't something that was around me. And even when I went to college and I was exposed to people who had grown up with a lot of money, again, I didn't feel like it was something that was attainable for me. I just didn't have a lot of examples of everyday Latinos who were financially secure. And so when I started reading these personal finance books, I started to think like, oh, well, now I have a guide. There's a plan. There's things that I could actually try. Y vamos a ver. Let's see if I can do it. And it just kind of became a challenge for me to see like, okay, let's see how much wealth I can make or build being myself, like with my background. My husband also didn't come from money, grew up in the projects in the South Bronx. And for us, we're just like, okay, well, started from the bottom. Let's see where we go.
And that's a great objective and goal to have. And I love how you took your challenge, your personal medical challenge, and turned adversity into something positive. It shows a lot of your personality and also how strong you are. So I definitely want to say that it's something that you overcame and made it into a positive outcome. Can you talk to me a little bit more about how we can achieve financial wellness as a family? I understand you have a family of 4. Can you talk to us a little bit of how we can achieve financial wellness as a family?
Yeah. Okay. Like straight up, these are the things that you need to have in place. You want to make sure that you have an emergency fund. You want to list out all of your monthly expenses and think about, okay, if I were to lose my job, how many, let's say, do I need 3 months before I find a new job? Do I need 4 months before I find a job? Figure that number out. You take all your expenses that you have in a month and you multiply it either by three, however long it would take you to replace your job. And once you have that number, then you know how much money you need to save in an emergency fund. You don't want to save too much because if you save too much, then you're going to risk losing your dinero to inflation. But if you don't have enough, you're going to always find yourself relying on credit cards and loans in order to pay for emergencies. And emergencies happen, they always happen. So you want to build an emergency fund. You want to become very intentional about how you spend your dinero. Making a plan, whether you call it a budget, call it a spending plan, but know what you're going to do with your money that comes your way each month and create a plan. How much of it is going to go to an emergency fund? How much of it is going to go to debt? How much is going to go to your everyday expenses? How much is going to go to investing for your future? In addition, I also want to see that all of us are investing for a retirement. That's really important. And I know that that's something that I didn't even think about. Like I didn't really think about. My husband didn't start investing until he was 32 years old. So if you haven't been thinking about investing either, know that you're not alone, but that's going to be important. Then, we start to go into like personal things. Do you want to own your house as a family? Do you want to invest for your children's college education? That's when it kind of like depends. Everybody's family is different in terms of what their needs are. But at the very basics, like everyone needs to have an emergency fund. Everyone needs to be intentional with the dinero that's coming their way. And they need to be investing for their retirement.
Those are great tips. And one that stood out for me is really being intentional about money, right? The more we recognize how money can be a tool for us, and especially for those that have a family, then we're a little bit more cognizant of what comes in and what comes out. So thank you for sharing those tips with us. Can you tell me a little bit of what are some financial habits that you have taught your children, or perhaps in the process of thinking, these are the things that I'm going to start exposing my children so that they have a different outlook of financial literacy?
Yeah. So my kids are 4 and 6. And they already know about budgeting. They know how much money they get a month. So we give them $100 a month. And they know that they could only buy things if they have money in their budget. They also know, I've also explained to them the importance of delaying gratification. Just because you see something and you want it doesn't mean that you buy it in that exact moment. So if my kids ask me for something, they know that I'll never buy it for them that same day. However, if they see it again a week later, if it's something they keep talking about, then it's something that I'll consider getting for them. Or we put it on their birthday list so someone else can get it for them. At this age, what they're aware of is that there is a budget and they can't just expect to get something the second they want it. Mm-hmm. That it's something that they have to show continued interest. My family is also minimalist. So they don't have a lot of things. We really focus a lot more on experiences. And that's something that I also think has impacted them too. So they know that they have to take care of the things that they have because they're not going to be able to just replace it so quickly. So my kids will wash their own shoes. They'll clean their own shoes because they know those shoes have to last at least the season. Mm-hmm. So those are little things. And then, I have godchildren. And so my 13-year-old godson, I've already talked to him about credit. And I've added him to one of my credit cards so that he could start to build his credit. So I added him as an authorized user. And I've also started talking to him about investing. So he's 13. I tell him in 3 years, ya puedes trabajar. You could start investing in a custodial Roth IRA. You put money in there, I'll match your contributions.
Very nice.
Each age, there's different things. I think the older your kids are, you want to definitely, if they're working and they have earned income, get them investing in tax advantage accounts like a Roth IRA, making sure they're saving. And that's something that my 13-year-old godson, I would talk to him a lot about, the importance of just saving dinero. And that showed me oh, okay. He saved $1,000 from birthday monies, from Christmas, different things. And I was okay, you're responsible enough for me to add you as an authorized user on my credit card.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for a 13-year-old to save $1,000. Very impressive. So you are doing a great job with your godson. You're building a future for your family and your family is part of it. How do you cultivate a balance between motherhood, entrepreneurship, and career?
Barely. The truth, barely. It is an everyday challenge. There are times where I feel that I am killing it when it comes to my business. And then there's times that I feel like I'm killing it as a mom. And rarely do I feel like I'm killing it at both. What I have accepted is that I don't think about things in a day. I think about them like in a month.
Okay.
So I think in a month, how many quality moments did I have with my kids? What experiences did I create with them? What memories are they going to have from this month? And also the same thing with my business, like I don't need to be amazing at all things every single day, but overall, like I like to have a little bit of wins each month. And that's what I think about. I like plan out like what are going to be the memories that I want to have with my children, the memories that I want to have with my partner, and then the wins that I want to have career wise. And at the end of the day, I think it's most important of like just enjoying the journey, always looking back at how far I've come. That's important. Like you don't want to get into like comparing yourself to other people because then you're always going to feel like you're losing in some way. Like you just have to focus on yourself.
Correct. Yeah, that is key. And I believe also with cultivating a balance between motherhood and everything else around is also personal, right? Everything would have to work for you and your family situation. And I love the concept of basically 30 days per month. That's actually something I started doing myself, where I set aside, what do I want to accomplish in 30 days in this month? What do I want to accomplish this month? And so I like how you're doing that as well, because that's very helpful. But I think we're all learning, right? All of us who are mothers and have other things going on. I think it's a learning process of how we can find that balance that works for our unique situation.
100%. And it has to be reflective of our own values, our own needs, and nothing is going to look like somebody else's. And that's okay.
Exactly. Exactly. And talking about how we can find tools to help us accomplish our financial goals, you indicated books were a big value adding to your wellness. Aside from books, what are some other tools that we can use to be able to start or even keep our financial journey?
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. One thing that I would say is subscribe to my newsletter. It's out every 1st and 15th of the month because in there I always include books that I'm reading, podcasts that I'm listening to, YouTube videos that I'm watching, workshops that I'm attending or presenting to people. So it's a good way to get to your email 6 things that you could try in a month. There's some resources there. And then in addition to that, follow social media accounts that talk about personal finance, find your little community, and find a system for budgeting. Do you want to use an app? Do you want to use a notebook? Do you want to use an Excel sheet? Figure that out because being intentional with your money is important for you to even have the discretionary income, the extra cash flow to send to your emergency fund. Automate if possible. Like I know it took me a long time to be able to automate my savings and payments because I needed to become very clear about my spending first. But automating your contributions to your investment accounts and your savings accounts is going to save you time and it's going to be helpful. There's so many resources out there. There's a lot of free information out there. Clever Girl Finance has free lessons out there. Miss Be Helpful has a wonderful YouTube channel. Yo Quiero Dinero podcast is a great podcast that talks about dinero. Every single episode, there's so many resources out there. So if you follow me on Instagram, you could definitely I'm always sharing things because I want you to have that financial information and I think it should be affordable.
Yeah, definitely. Can we go back to a key part that you mentioned in the beginning where you said that you grew up thinking wealth was not accessible or you didn't think it was accessible for you? Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you were able to change that mindset.
Yeah. I mean, understanding your money beliefs, it's so important in order to build wealth, right? So for a long time, I didn't think that building wealth was something that I could achieve that. I was a teacher, so I was like, I like helping people. And because I thought that helping people and making money were exclusive, I didn't think you could do those two things together. So these are all like little beliefs that I had that impacted my income. It impacted how like my income staying a certain amount. It impacted the goals that I had for myself financially. And it's important to know those limiting beliefs. And I think one of the things is I recognize them. Like I was like, okay, I believe this. And then I had to question that. Is that true? Is that 100% true? And find evidence for it not being true. And I just became a lot more self-aware about what my beliefs were. They were holding me back. And that mindset work, it never stops. Like I remember thinking, I don't know if I'll be able to pay this one student loan, right? So I had a total of 23,000 student loans, and that was 23,000 after already paying loans for like 9 years. Okay. And I thought, okay, well, the way I said poco a poco, let me start with just one. The one with the smallest balance was like around $1,400. And that seemed like so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay that one, but I was like, let's just start there. And then I did that. I paid it off. And that gave me the confianza to then, pay more of my student loan debt. Then I also had to build a 6-month emergency fund, which for my family was $30,000. And I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. And I was like, 30,000 saved in a bank account? That's so much money. That's so much money. I don't even know anybody who has that much money in a savings account. That was another limiting belief for me, that I had to get comfortable with the idea of like, el dinero no se hizo para gastar, actually, even though that's something that I heard all the time growing up, that money was meant to be spent.
Uh-huh.
So I had to change that belief. I build my emergency fund, then I get into investing. And I'm nervous to invest because nobody in my family is investing. So there's another limiting belief that I had about whether investing was gambling. So each time in my financial journey, then as I work to increase my income, questioning whether I'd be able to do that. And the thing is that you have to understand, like, that is never going to go away. You're always going to find new limiting beliefs that you have, and you have to question them. You have to question them and then train your brain to think differently and literally say to yourself, like, I can do this poco a poco. I'm learning. I give myself permission to learn. I don't need to be an expert. I give myself permission to make mistakes. And I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to have my back, and I'm going to say positive things to myself, even when I am scared, even when I am doubtful.
Yes, it's so important. I can attest that positive affirmations and positive mindset is really, really key and helps us to overcome our self-limiting beliefs. I love what I read in your bio that you even had to make the decision not to talk about your particular situation and instead to start a supportive system. So you decided that you respected your family and friends' decision not to talk about it, but you wanted to create a support system. And I think that's very important. Can you tell us a little bit of how did that go, and how did creating a support system help you to maybe even change your mindset or help you to keep your mindset on track?
Oh, yeah. So the thing is that my loved ones didn't like talking dinero. So when I started talking about like budgeting and wanting to pay off my debt and realizing like, oh, I have the least amount of money in my adult life with the most responsibilities, right? I had already had 2 kids. I was already married. And I realized I have less money now than when I was single and had made less money. And when I wanted to have those conversations and talk to, my comadres, my friends, my family, they did not want to talk about money. They would just stay like quiet. And I realized that if I was going to build wealth, I needed community. Just like anything, I feel like anything I've ever been able to do, I always needed community. I always needed a support system. And that's why I started Wealth Para Todos, because I wanted to find other people who would talk dinero. And it was just like, okay, let's learn together Let me teach you what I know. You teach me what I know. Let's talk about like our highs, our lows on our financial journey. And let's do this together. And if, you look on Instagram, there's like hashtag debt-free community, or you have hashtag FIRE journey, which is financial independence, retire early, or the FIRE community. There's different people who also have similar financial goals as myself that I've been able to connect with. And it makes the biggest difference. You're not alone.
Definitely. Community is definitely key. Tell us a little bit of, is there something that you knew? There's probably many, right? Like all of us, there's a lot of things that we wish we knew back then that we know now about financial wellness. What would be your key takeaway?
Practical, like the practical thing that I want everybody to know is to start investing as soon as possible. Time in the market is so valuable. Compound interest is your friend. Inflation is your enemy. The sooner you start investing, the better. That's like practical. But I also think what I've learned over time is to get comfortable with fear, to get comfortable with this idea of failure. And it's like, oh, okay, I could be scared, but that's not going to stop me. Like I'm just going to walk along on my journey with fear, and that's okay. And that fear is there to try to protect me. But I also have to be able to tell fear of talking dinero, fear of budgeting, fear of investing, fear of paying off debt, fear of increasing my income, fear of starting a side hustle, fear of starting a business. Like, okay, I see you, I hear you, but you are not the one in control, and I'm bigger than my fear. And I think that's really important for everybody to know on their financial journey.
That's great advice. Definitely, it's helpful for someone who may be just starting a financial journey or perhaps even thinking about it. That is definitely great advice. And that is a wrap for today. I want to thank Soledad for dropping gems using her knowledge to empower others in their financial journey. Soledad, please feel free to drop your handle and invite our audience to follow you.
Yes. I hope that you will follow me on Instagram at Wealth Para Todos. I also have a website, www.wealthparatodos.com. Subscribe to my newsletter. I would love to continue to talk dinero with you. And I am somebody who responds to all my emails, responds to DMs, responds to questions and comments on my posts. But the more of us building wealth, the better. So let's do it.
Thanks for listening to the Dropping Gems con Muchos Colores podcast. We have a new episode every month. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave a review and subscribe so you don't miss a beat. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.